Thanks for joining us again this evening for the second installment of our discussion on Mecca impersonating Jerusalem. So this is the Jerusalem Thesis presented by Odon, and we're joined by a fantastic panel. As Mal was saying earlier, it's a great panel, except for me. And just kidding. So yeah, we have a fantastic lineup of guests here to discuss this. And we've got Mal, Islamic Origins. We've got JC, the Quranic Endgame. We have Kalam L from Titans TV. We have Odon Lafontaine. And of course, Usama, Darkwing Duck, the terror that flaps in the night, who I will be live with tomorrow again to discuss the Quran and the Tafsir. Sadly, I will have to carry that through. But yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking about the evidence for Mecca and how Mecca is actually Jerusalem or recreated Jerusalem. So yeah, Odon, I'll let you open up. Hello, Just Chance. So Odon, I'll let you open up, and then we'll work through the panel. And then I've got a little bonus for everyone. So Odon, welcome, and thanks for doing this.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. Hello, everyone. I just want to add that if we're lucky, Paul Ellis will join us, but he hasn't responded yet. And tonight it won't be about evidence that the narrative, the Islamic narrative, is about Jerusalem rather than Mecca. It will be counter evidence, anti-evidence, evidence that Mecca cannot have been the city that is described in the Islamic narrative. We will talk about the Meccan environment, which is very harsh and cannot sustain 1,000+ people city, such as Mecca is supposed to have been.
Yeah, not without extensive technology, not without irrigation, not without
exactly.
Logistics.
Exactly. I just did a quick comparison. I asked ChatGPT, are there other cities with climatic conditions that are equivalent or alike Mecca's? And yes, there are. There is, for example, the city of Aswan in Egypt, or Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And there are some. And all of them, either they have a very big river, such as the Nile for Aswan, or they have been developed recently, very recently, thanks to major water extraction in the underground with modern technology. So there is no ancient city with a climate, a Meccan-like climate, without a big river to sustain it. And it's already a clue that there is something wrong with Mecca.
Right. You know, I covered something with JC yesterday, which we'll do a talk on. But if you do a statistical analysis of if you look at the Bible, let's say you take Paul's Gospels, right, where he's supposedly addressing a pagan audience as well as like Romans and Christians, right? You'll see roughly there's like a 40 to 60 split across various books of the Bible where they are evangelizing and addressing a foreign audience as well as their own people, right? Teaching for their own people as well as trying to evangelize to pagans. But if in the Quran, 96% of the people mentioned in the Quran are biblical figures. You would think that if Muhammad's message is addressed to pagans that he's trying to convert, you'd see 60% pagans and maybe 30% Muslims.
Especially Brother Lloyd, when we know that he was sent as a mercy for mankind, for all the people. He's not a prophet of a specific group or specific people, as he claims some of the Christians are, or the Jewish are, but he was sent to the whole world, the whole earth. So his audience should be all varieties of different people in planet Earth.
Yeah, so there's a problem with the percentages, and I think so Usama, since you're here, introduce yourself, please, and then we'll move to Kalam and JC and Mal, and Paul has joined in.
You already introduced me as that guy who flap on the night, whatever you said. I like what you said. That's good enough for me.
Awesome stuff. Everyone knows you, so yeah, that's great. Usama is actually on TV. He's on the radio. He's on YouTube. He's everywhere. So fine.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And he's done his own Quran translation. He's busy with the new one, and we've written on the tafsir. So yeah, so great. And Kalam, please introduce yourself. I'm glad you joined us.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't miss this one. I saw the last episode and I was gutted that I couldn't be part of it. So yeah, thank you once again for inviting me on the panel. Kalam from Titans TV. I'll say we're most famous for being at Speaker's Corner and actually debating and putting on a lot of debates at Speaker's Corner as well, recording it and making that go worldwide. Currently, I'm doing a lot of research into the Abyssinian origins of Islam, really delving into the 6th century and the environment. What was Arabia like in the 6th century? What was the power structure? What was the religions like in the Arabian Peninsula? And just trying to figure out how did Islam actually emerge, looking at the material culture as well as the contemporary literature available.
Right. Awesome stuff. Yeah, and you did a great presentation. So hopefully we'll expand on that and build on that, because now I think we're ready to accept that there's life before 570 AD. Mal, welcome. Maybe you can make a brief intro.
Was that to me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mel. Yeah.
Oh, I just broke up and I didn't hear. So I'm Mel from Islamic Origins. You probably know of me. I'm looking into how Islam began, and I'm mainly focused on the 7th century. In terms of the latest from me, I've been looking at the question of the mole on Muhammad's back this week, and I've basically suggested this week that Seal of the Prophets comes through Tertullian. And interestingly, later Muslim exegetes talk about the Seal of the Prophets being to do with Mani, but there's no documents that have survived from Mani that suggest this. This is purely Muslims suggesting that. But if you go back to Tertullian, you discover not only is there reference to the Seal of the Prophets in relation to Christ, but also the mark on his shoulder, which I'm suggesting is where the Muslims get this mark on the back. And it's, of course, the mark of the cross on his back. And the other thing I found out this week is there's an Arabic word called zabiba, which means raisin. And I made the link that in Gabriel's Reynolds' book, he talks about the description of the people prostrating in the Quran. He says, while he can't prove it, he says it's more than likely that it's Eastern monks that's been referred to as bowing and getting a mark on their forehead. And that links with that word zabiba. So the zabiba means raisin. So this is where the Ethiopic connection comes in. You remember that famous hadith that refers to the Ethiopians as having heads like raisins? Yeah. It could be lost in translation that actually what's referring to is the Ethiopians are pious because of their mark on their forehead. And so even if a pious Ethiopian was a slave, you should still obey him because of his piety. Totally different meaning to how it's come down. So instead of it being a racist thing initially, it obviously is racist the way it is presented nowadays, but it got lost in translation. So it's interesting how in both cases they've taken something and they've twisted it. This is a common thing.
Great.
But by the way, the Egyptian, when they pray,
I was about to show that, Usama. I'll show that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, not to worry. No,
it doesn't matter how many years you pray, you will not have that mark on the forehead. But they do it with a rock. They heat the rock and they burn in front of their head. These are big scar. That guy has 3 of them. MashaAllah. Yeah, he put on 3 sides of his head. Anyway, one of the ladies, she was a teacher of mine. She tried to make it, and she had a very bad infection in her forehead. And I felt sorry for her. So
that's look quite at a raisin there.
Oh yeah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They burn a rock. They hit a rock and burn their forehead just to look like, oh, I am a guy who pray a lot. And in reality, if you pray every day in your life, the 5-day prayer for 56 years, you're not going to have that mark.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that.
This is the original virtue signaling. Tell the world that you're a pious person.
Razor on his nose. You see the guy with a razor on his nose?
Yeah,
He's
I know.
supposed to put his forehead on the floor, not his
Yeah.
nose.
Let's not spend the whole show on the introductions. JC,
Sorry.
how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. So for everyone watching, they're probably familiar with who I am. So JC from Quranic Endgame, and I'm glad to actually be here with this phenomenal panel to explore more of the fabricated origins of Islam.
Great. Yeah, and Paul, very welcome. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi, sorry, my camera doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well,
Well,
you're a different view.
I'm nothing really to look at, but I shall, after we've done the introductions, I might do the old tried and tested, switch off the computer and start again. So I may leave you for a few moments and come back.
Okay.
But yes, who am I? I live in London, and I've been writing for a few years now a book which is very close to completion, called Jerusalem, City of Islam. And my core thesis is that the Masjid al-Haram, the House of Allah in the Quran, is in fact a reference to the Jerusalem Temple. And I find arguments in favor of that. And then I also work from that to use that as an interpretative tool to find out what the Quran really means.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, fantastic. And okay, briefly, so I just want to show something, then we'll move on. So I spoke to JC about this yesterday. We'll talk about this, and anyone who wants to join us is welcome. This was actually done by, I think, a guy who's an actuary. He did a statistical analysis of all the people named in the Quran. Right. This is an example of Paul, the work of the Apostle Paul. So here you've got the Jewish or pre-Mosaic biblical characters of 58%, and then pagan and non-Jewish of 42%, because he's addressing a pagan audience. He's evangelizing to, and he's in a world that has a lot of pagans, right? So you can see this. Now, if you go through other books of the Bible, for instance, like if you look at Joshua as 131 to 69, now if you look at a word cloud of the New Testament, Jesus is mentioned heavily, Abraham, Moses, Adam, Paul, no Muhammad, oddly enough, right? No Muslims, I don't see any, but you can see what the Quran, what the Bible leans on. Now let's quickly skip over this. Let's go to this. This is the Quran. 96% of the time, the speaker in the Quran is talking about the Bible. Almost exclusively. Only 4% are Arab or Greek or non-biblical characters. Yes, Mel?
No, that's amazing. That's a great statistic to have got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if you look here, if you deep dive on the people, 40% of the time, the speaker in the Quran is talking about Jesus and Moses. At least 40%. Just at face value, right? So you're looking at Jesus is 21, Moses 18, and then everyone else is 61%. Muhammad, the supposed central character, is less than 1% of the Quran.
Yeah.
So the central figure of the Quran is mentioned less than 1%, right? But when you look at the word cloud, have a look. Jesus is the main character.
In all the books of the Bible, start from Genesis. We should do a study about that. Show Jesus throughout the 66 books of the Bible.
Yeah. So now what happens is, now this was done by a guy who specializes in statistics, and he put this together. So the Quran doesn't math here for the Quran versus any other document from that era.
There are probably titles for Jesus that would actually increase that percentage even higher.
Say again, please. No.
If you take into account, there are probably lots and lots of references which are referring to Jesus, but maybe not naming him as such, which would boost up the references to Jesus even higher.
Correct. So we're using the overt ones. And then I'll quickly make a detour with the release of the Epstein PDF files on the internet. We've, and Muhammad does appear in the PDF files, by the way. But Muslims have been very much busy on social media saying there are no Muslims in the Epstein files. I'd like to mention the Epstein files. This is from the Middle East Eye. show Kaaba cloth pieces from Mecca were shipped to him via Muslims in the UAE. So for some reason, pieces of the Kaaba, not only the Kiswa cloth, apparently other pieces as well of the Kaaba were sent to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. And we'd obviously like to know why. I'm asking for a friend.
Right. Perhaps they're all cut from the same cloth.
Very
It's
good.
very simple.
Very good, sir.
I know the answer. No. I'm serious. I'm serious. Listen, Muhammad was the greatest influence on him. He literally learned a lot from Muhammad and his Sunnah. He didn't like it to go to the 8, 9. He limited to 14. So if you are younger than 14 years old, he for little girls, he is not interested. That's why Muhammad was not too much heavily involved in the life of him, because he thought he's abrogating the Sunnah of Muhammad by moving the age of the females from 7 and 8, 9 to 14. Muhammad was very upset, and that's why he quit. But Muhammad originally was that he is the greatest influence on Epstein in his decision to move on with this new immoral way of life. But sadly, because he changed the age, it did not work out. Sometimes people split. He get different opinion, and if you disagree with the Prophet of Allah, there's no chance for you to be part of his propaganda. Okay, you got it. I hope I make sense now, because I worked hard on answering that question, man.
Yeah, but Muslims are obviously going to say this has nothing to do with Islam. But yeah, why are Muslims sending Epstein, and why is Epstein so interested? He's not asking for pieces of I don't know, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. He's asking for pieces from the Kaaba. And then on top of this, here's a letter, right? Let me just go here. This is from Aziza Al-Ahmadi, okay, to Mr. Epstein. This is 2017. By the way, the Black Peace was touched by a minimum 10 million Muslims, right? They walk around the Kaaba and they all try and touch it, and they kept their prayers, wishes, tears, and hopes on this peace, hoping that their prayers to be accepted. And so he is sending a piece of the cloth to him, right? The kiswa.
Wait a minute, that's her, not him. Go back. What's her name again?
Aziza, she's a girl.
Aziza, female, not a man. Aziz is a man. Aziza is a woman. Go ahead.
And then you've got Abdullah. I'm assuming that's a guy. Okay.
Abdullah is a guy, yeah.
And then you've got Karina Shuliak, you've got Daphne Wallace, new shipment. As per instruction, we will ship some pieces of the Kaaba for the mosque. What mosque is Epstein requesting pieces of the Kaaba for? In the attached file from page 224 will be the actual pieces. You'll be receiving an explanation of each was added. And okay, so,
mashallah, mashallah.
So why are they sending pieces of the Kaaba to Mr. Epstein for a mosque?
Listen. I give you a quick answer quickly. Here we go. They all know how macho Muhammad was. I mean, he is a man who is a sex machine, however you want to say it in English. And they thought if he will be touched by it, he will receive some of the power of Muhammad, so he can be able to perform even heavily than just one or twice.
This is the temple on Epstein's Island.
Ooh,
and they were sending in pieces for the mosque. Looks a little bit like, does anyone know of something in Jerusalem, a Muslim mosque with a golden dome on it? Anyone seen anything like that?
Yeah. I think I saw it once or twice in my life.
Yeah, and they're sending Epstein something for the mosque.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Blessing.
So just so you know, what are your thoughts, Paul? What do you think of this odd revelation? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's outside my specialism. It'd be interesting if he wanted to recreate a kiswat for his little shrine there. That would be a rather strange thing. But as we say in Yorkshire, there's naught as queer as folk.
Yeah, but we do know that Epstein's victims were actually older than Muhammad's victim, right?
Much older.
Yeah, Epstein at least had some standards. So yeah, so then definitely. So Odon, I think over to you. I will stop sharing, and then I think we hand over to you.
No, but before you get to the
All right.
it's in my heart. I don't say it. I'm going to be unhappy the rest of my life.
Let me show,
The connection between that guy and Islam, it's amazing that you always see all over the West, gay and lesbian also love to be Muslims. Now we got two huge mosques in America, one in New York and one in California, of gay and lesbians. And the more I study about Muhammad, the life of Muhammad, I found that he was a gay, especially when you talk about the Zot. You know, the powerful Zot and how Muhammad was really having a good all night long business with them. So it seemed to me the lifestyle of this guy and the lifestyle of the homosexual, it fit perfectly with Muhammad. The more you know about Muhammad, the more you want to embrace Islam, you know? Go ahead. I'm done.
Okay.
If I can just pop in there, should have a little rider here that is all according to the tradition and the traditional narrative. But for my part, I don't believe a word of it. So I think the truth is very, very different. But you're correct, sir, that is the disreputable story of Muhammad, as it was later told by his by people who considered themselves his followers.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, Paul. The narrative is a forgery, and but tonight we will see arguments for the forgery on a different topic. It will be about Mecca. In the previous stream, I tried to show how the Islamic narrative tried to tell its story thanks to the reinterpretation of the Quran. And we saw how, according to this Islamic narrative, the Quran supposedly tells as a Meccan reading. It tells the story of the city of Mecca within Islam. So it was the previous stream. I urge our viewers to see it on Lloyd or JC or my channel. So this is what we did last time, but this time, tonight, I want to address some of the major issues that there are with the location of Mecca. Issues linked to its environment, and the most major, the biggest issue of all, it's the biggest constraint there is. It's the question of water, the water supply in Mecca. Because the first thing
I don't know. I hesitate to interrupt, Odon, but I'm getting a lot of interference here. I don't know if other people are hearing it. It sounds as though Aisha's trying to get into the live stream.
No, nothing.
No. Everything is fine by me.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's my headphones. I'll try and maybe I'll switch to some manual headphones. I might be picking up some local signals.
Okay.
Sorry.
So as I was saying, the first thing one is to notice when arriving Mecca is its climate. It's a very harsh climate. It's a subtropical desert climate. So with extremely low rainfall, irregular rainfall. Sometimes there is rainfall, but mostly there is very, very few rainfall. So very few vegetation, very sparse. And so no capabilities for agricultural. And actually, it is still the case today. If you look at a map of pictures or images of Mecca from a satellite, there is nothing green apart from modern agriculture with irrigation. But there is absolutely nothing that is naturally green. And but as a result of this climate and the Meccan situation, location, there is a water scarcity. There is very few water in Mecca. And this condition, even with all the work the Saudis have done, are almost the same today. Today, there are huge desalinization plants in Jeddah on the on the coast of the Red Sea that produce astronomical quantities of water. But even with these, people keep on dying of thirst, dehydration, exhaustion, and heat in Mecca. And last year, during the last Hajj, for example, 1,300 pilgrims died of thirst, of dehydration. And so, if it's still an issue today, with all the logistics and the extensive work that the Saudis have done, one can imagine how difficult it could have been, it was, in the 7th century. And it's quite easy to picture that there is not enough water in Mecca to support the population described in the Islamic narrative. So the Islamic narrative is a bit vague because, of course, there is no census of the population, the Meccan population within this narrative. We don't know exactly how many people were there. There is a study that has been done on the names of the males, the people. And the study showed that there were something like, in the Islamic narrative, 500 different male persons at the time of Muhammad in Mecca. So it would amount to a city of 1,500 people with the women and children, maybe a bit more. It's already a big city. In Ibn Kathir's or other traditionist writings, there is mention of the Meccan armies that are 1,000 strong. Ibn Kathir even speaks about 10,000 horsemen. So having an army of 10,000 horsemen plus foot soldiers, of course, it would mean a very, very big city, a city tens of thousands strong, at least.
Tens of millions, yeah, it's going to be, yeah.
So, yeah, we can say without hesitation that it is a fantasy. But could there have been a city of 1,000 or 2,000 people? Could there have been such a city? Actually, it's not possible. It's not possible because of the very limited water supply. I told already that the descriptions of Mecca within the Islamic narrative are vague. And it's especially true when one looks at the water supply, the water sources. Of course, there is the Zamzam well, which is a few meters to the Kaaba. The Zamzam well is supposed to be the big water source of Mecca. But first of all, it wasn't in use before Muhammad's time. Supposedly, it has been unearthed by Muhammad's grandfather. So before Muhammad's grandfather, this well was not in use. And besides, it's not a profound well that taps into an underground aquifer. The aquifer of Zamzam is fed by rains, so it is not it's not prehistoric waters like we have in Riyadh, for example, or in other cities. It is dependent on the rainfall. Yeah, Mel, I know you're an expert on the topic.
No, well, hopefully I'm just going to add a little bit to it. So I think a related issue with the water, we often think of human beings and their need for water. So if you think of human beings, they need about 2 liters typically in a temperate climate. They need about 3 liters of water a day in a hotter, maybe even up to 5. But if you're talking about, say, a horse needs about 40 liters of water a day.
You mean like this?
What's that?
Camels, goats, horses.
Yeah. Oh, you're getting it. And I was just going to add that in terms of fodder, a horse would need about 7 kilograms of hay per day. So you try and imagine trying to get all of that in for 10,000 horses every day. It's impossible.
No, it cannot be. A horse
impossible.
drinks at least 30 liters a day, at least. So you cannot have horses in the desert without a network of wells and cisterns and so on. But the thing is, when we look at the Islamic narrative, there is, of course, a mention of the Zamzam well, but there are not that much other wells. There is this traditionist Al-Arzaki, who wrote a book about Mecca. I don't remember the century, something like 11th or 12th century, maybe a bit earlier. The book is Akhbar Mecca, and it's a sort of digest of all the traditions about Mecca. And he mentions by name only 4 other wells. So Bir Maimun, Bir Al-Harm, Bir Al-Jul, and Bir Tuwa. He mentions also minor wells or cisterns, basins, where water from rainfall
Mecca is supposed to be an agricultural city with animals. So you've got to feed goats, you've got to feed sheep, you've got to feed water for people, plus for planting of whatever it is, dates and apples and pears and bananas, whatever the heck they're growing there. So you need water for irrigation. So you should have an irrigation network. You should have dams. And don't they speak of people fishing? So where's all the water?
Exactly. We will get to this. So, like I said, the mention to water sources are very vague, sometimes contradictory. You find mentions of wells in stories that are supposed to take place in Mecca, and when you look into it, the well is in Medina or elsewhere. I will show you in a bit a map that has been done by a devout Muslim, supposedly a map of 7th century Mecca, and you will see this, but it's complete fantasy. But the thing is to make the calculation in terms of needs, what humans and animal needs, and you will see that even with these 5 wells and with minor wells, cisterns, and basins, there is insufficient water for in order to sustain a settlement here in Mecca. So I just did this calculation for a population of only 500 people, which would be something like 150 men, maybe 100 men, and then women and children. And then we have to look at their cattle, their animals also. So, like Mel told, I think a minimum human consumption is 2 liters a day per person. So it's 1 cubic meter for 500 people population.
Yeah, but then someone mentioned it's not just drinking; it's also bathing. Unless these people,
but it's minimum. I look at the minimum figure. Of course, one would need a bit more, but just in order not to die from thirst.
And then Mecca was an advanced city with advanced technology, so they would have, been using Wakanda level sort of water needs as well.
This kind of technologies existed, but they are not documented in Mecca. If you look at Petra, for example, Petra was also in a desertic climate.
I've been to Petra,
there was a whole network of canals and irrigation and cisterns, and the valley of Petra was flourishing. It was a sort of garden.
No, I've been to Petra. I've been to Petra, and I've been around Mecca as well.
Yeah.
What is a quick question here? Could be one of the reasons because of a shortage of water that Muhammad encourages people to drink camel urine.
Yeah, but it's the same. If you want to drink camel urine, your camel, he has to drink. It has to drink, and it drinks much more than a human.
Liters or something. That's per camel. It's a lot of water.
So no, it's not efficient at all. you better drink what water the camel would have to drink in order to piss, instead of drinking its piss. It would be much more efficient, because camels, they are supposedly they are called the desert animals or desert vessels, but a camel needs 40 liters of water a day. So camels can survive without drinking a few days, maybe a week, maybe more. But in general, they still need 40 liters of water a day. It's even more than a horse. And here I've done my consultant job. I don't know if your audience knows this, Lloyd, but I used to be a strategy consultant. So this is what I did, trying to understand things by making calculation. What would be the livestock required to support 500 people? So I try to, I look at the figures, how many goats are necessary to supply 1 liter, for example, 1 liter of milk a day per person, or half a liter. In this case, it's half a liter. What will be the meat consumption? So you can say that an average people eats a goat in a year, or 2 goats in a year, and so on. So those are not exact, precise figures, but it gives you an order of magnitude. The livestock required to support 500 people, it would be a mix of camel and goats. You could do all goats or all camels, but I've done a mix here since they're supposed to be traders, and so they need camels. The mix would be 150 camels and 500 goats, plus a bit of culture also, because you cannot live only on camel milk and piss and meat, and goat milk and milk. And if you add 10 horses, because there are mentions of horses also in the Islamic narrative, it amounts to a minimum consumption of 9 cubic meters a day for the animals. And that excludes irrigation for pastures, because camels, they do not live on thorns and bushes. They need pastures, and there are no pastures in Mecca. And even goats, they can live in an extensive system. They can live on shrubs and thorns and pure sparse vegetation. But if you have 500 goats, it starts to become a bit a great number, and you will need a bit of pasture. And for this pasture, and also for some cultivation, for some minimal crop, you will need a lot of water to have something just a tiny bit green for your livestock and for minimal crop. And it's this minimal water, the calculation I've made, it amounts to a minimum of 250 cubic meters a day. So you see, it's a lot. It's at least 10 cubic meters a day for the human and the animals, plus 200 at least for crop irrigation, pasture irrigation. And if you do another calculation, the output of a traditional hand-drawn well, it's not that much. You can have systems with camels or donkeys. You know, the Noria system, which sort of automatically draws water from the well. But there is no such mention in the tradition. The mention are that the water was hand-drawn, so with a bucket attached to a rope. And I've done a calculation. If you have a 10-liter bucket, for example, and it takes 5 minutes
Is there
population.
any evidence
500
of
people.
Is there evidence of underground aquifers, rivers, or dams in Mecca in 700 AD, or 600 AD, or 650 AD?
No. There was no dam.
No underground
the dam
aquifer.
would be built by Muawiyah in Taif. Taif, it's
I've been to
3
Taif.
to 4 days walk from Mecca.
I've been to
It will
Taif.
be built in say 670, something like this.
Yeah, I've spent a couple of days in Taif. There's not a lot going on. I can tell
Mel,
you.
you are knowledgeable here. I think you.
No, I've
can,
been there. I've been to
like
that.
According,
region.
according to the Islamic narrative, and I've begun to doubt this as well. Queen Zubaydah built an aqueduct to Mecca around the year 800. I think it was finished by 801 according to tradition. But one of the things that made me doubt it is, let me see if I can find it here. In the 16th century, there's almost an identical story involving the daughter of Suleiman I. Her name was Mehrima, and she was supposed to have renovated the aqueduct.
Yeah.
And I find that a bit of a coincidence that in both cases we have 2 important women involved in dealing with the aqueduct. And I think it's likely that the 16th century story was they built an aqueduct then, and then they pushed it back to the 800s to make it all kind of fit. But I don't know beyond that.
Anyway, it's this aqueduct thing. It's evidence that there wasn't enough water on site.
Yeah.
Life was not possible in Mecca, at least for a settlement of several hundred people. So some scholars think that maybe there could have been a seasonal settlement, for example, a week a year, 20 or 40 people gathered there. But it cannot have been much more.
Yeah.
It's physically not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the conclusion that
So
is,
no aquifers, no dams, no rivers. How then?
Let me Lloyd, let me give you another evidence of that. In the Quran, there's another Arab prophet, who was sent to the Arab before Muhammad. His name is Prophet Saleh. If you go to Quran chapter 7, for example, in verse 73, all right, Al-Tabari interprets that verse when Prophet Saleh brought the camel to the people of Samud. Al-Tabari is interpreting that he asked them not to harm her, the camel, even though it was a great miracle for that camel to come out of a rock.
Yeah.
It was a pregnant camel. But then Al-Tabari said, to you drink one day, and to her the drink one day. So which means all the people of Saleh can drink water one day, and the camel would drink water one day. They could not have enough water for both of them on the same day. Listen, this guys are very serious. This is not a light to talk to take lightly. So in the day where they allow the camel to drink the water they have, they can drink her milk. And it was enough milk for all of them. It's a little bit exaggeration here, but you can take it with Al-Tabari. I'm not a scholar. I just tell you what the scholar said. And that means in the following day, there'll be enough water for all the people of Prophet Saleh, the people of Samud, to drink the water. This is a true nature of such the Sahara, the desert of the Arabia. Muhammad did not make up the story out of thin air. They have not enough water there. It's reality. Way even before Muhammad, during the life of Prophet Saleh. If Muslims obviously believe in that, I don't believe there was any Arab prophets, as they claim there were 4 of them, Shaib and Saleh and Muhammad and whatever the last idiot is, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, so that is internal evidence in the Quran that it's not like a land with rivers or some what do you call, deep water coming from the ground. No, none. Go ahead.
But Usama, just a word. It's about the people of Sali, so it's not in Mecca.
They're Arab. It's called of Islam. I know they're not Mecca, but somewhere near Mecca, Arab.
Yeah.
You know, you say this camel came out of a rock. What is interesting is if you look at the god Mithra, he was born out of a rock.
MashaAllah.
Could there potentially be? I mean, this is just kind of off the wall here, but it's just odd that you know, you've got this overlap here with the only other god I know to come out of a rock was Mithra. He was born out of a rock wearing a hat. So I don't know how he was Jesus, you know, but yeah, you've got a camel coming out of a rock as well.
Can I jump in at something?
Please.
Sure.
In order to grow crops in a desert, you have to have soil. You can't just plant things in sand. That's the first issue. In order to have soil, you need cow manure and horse manure. So you need the animals there, and then you can grow things. And if you just try and put water in sand, it will just drain through. It's not going to retain itself. So you have got a major problem. So it's kind of like, which comes first? Is it the water? Is it the animals? It's very hard to grow things. And this is a problem. I'm interested in the situation where they're trying to send humans to Mars, and they have exactly the same problems. They know that in an ideal world, you bring all the food you need to last out there, but it's impossible. And so they can't really send humans to Mars because they'll never be able to grow things there because there's not enough water and the soil is completely wrong. You have the same problem in Mecca. The only reason it's relatively possible in recent centuries is because of technology. But prior to technology, as some of you mentioned, it was possible to maybe have a couple of pilgrimages to the location in a year. And that was with the full backing of the caliphs, who basically funded this really expensive trip to Mecca. But other than that, I don't see how it was possible.
Yes, some Muslims or even Western scholars who wants to cling on the Mecca narrative, they explain that there was no crop, of course, in Mecca. It was not possible. But what the Meccans did was buying vegetables or crops in nearby Taif. But Taif is not that nearby. It's a 3 to 4 days walk from Mecca to Taif. So it's a week-long trip just to get some groceries. And in order to buy those groceries, you have to have some coin or something. So you have to have a decent breeding livestock activity with many camels and goats that you could trade for vegetables, or to have at least a very profitable caravan trading, which could sustain the buying of such groceries or supplies from Taif. But it doesn't make any sense at all. You don't settle in a place where you have to make a 7-day journey, because it's a journey. It's a 1,300 meter walk up. How do you say that there is a
plateau?
Yeah, a plateau. But Taif is 1,003 meters higher than Mecca. So it's not that easy, especially in this climate, in this desertic climate. So the thing here is it's blatant. Why settling in Mecca when you can settle on the plateau in Taif? What's the reason for Mecca? So the Muslims would say, yeah, it's because of the Kaaba. But you see how it's reasoning in circle.
Mm.
The evidence for an ancient presence in Mecca is Islam itself. So Islam cannot prove itself outside of Islam's narrative. But even with this, we have seen that the water supply is not sufficient enough for human and animal needs. So even with this idea that one could get supplies from Mecca, it cannot stand because of the water constraint. But it
May I add something just before we
Yeah.
move on what you have just said, Odon, about the narrative? Islam cannot prove itself outside of the narrative. So something that we see quite a bit is for those who defend still the narrative, and then they are shown that these things don't make sense, they think that a suitable defense is to say, oh, well, the narrative happened the way that it's been told is, yes, it was at a smaller scale. It was a lot smaller, because that's how history was written. History has always been written by people who are biased, who have one vantage point, and they get a lot of things wrong. The problem is that in Islam, we cannot differentiate the narrative and the history. If we say, okay, so there weren't 10,000 people, there were actually a tribe of 20 guys, the whole narrative collapses. How can you believe in a guy saying that he was a prophet or what he said if they get those details wrong? So there is the rewriting of the narrative by saying, okay, well, it actually did happen, like we've been told, but a lot smaller. And Islam is the one case where you cannot do that, because if those stories are exaggerated, you cannot trust anything else in the narrative.
Yeah, and besides, you cannot scale down everything. In order to be sustainable, a settlement needs to have a minimal number of people. Mecca couldn't have been a 10 people city. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot build a city with only 10 people.
Can I jump in with
Yeah.
something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so parallel to all of this is the idea that Mecca was a center of culture.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're aware of Maslow's theory of needs, yeah, it's like a pyramid. On the bottom of the pyramid is your physical needs. If you're living in a subsistent environment, you're not worried about spirituality or libraries of books or anything like that. You're looking just to survive. You haven't got time for the higher needs of humans, because you're just trying to survive from day to day. So I find it all there's holes in every layer of this, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And but it doesn't prevent the Muslims to think otherwise and to invent fantasies about their the birthplace of their religion. And I want to show you here an interesting thing. It's this map that has been done by a guy called Binimad, or you can go to siramaps.com. There is a video presentation of his map, and for him, he has been praised by every Saudi and Muslim authority in Arabia. For him, this is what Mecca would have looked like in the 7th century. He pictures it, you see, with tens, hundreds of houses, a graveyard. There is a sheep market, but you see there is no green at all. And he only mentions 4 wells, excuse me, apart from the Zamzam well, Al-Jafr, Salja, Al-Betr, which are not mentioned in Al-Azraqi book. So it's a bit strange. And you see how this is a fantasy. It cannot have been. This is a completely desertic area. It's a desertic climate, and besides, so there is no rain, very few rainfalls, rainfalls, but when there are some, they are concentrated, and because of the physical the physics of this location, you see there are many hills or rocky hills, like here. So when it rains, and it happens sometimes, all the rains converges on the valley, and there can be flash floods that are extremely dangerous, extremely destructive. And all these houses that we see here would get destroyed at least once every 10 years or 20 years, and everything would have to be rebuilt. It is still the case today. I have a video I want to show you about contemporary flash floods in Mecca here. I hope it will work. So let me just reshare my screen on the video, and let me share. Let me share the flash floods in Mecca. This one. Just tell me, do you have the sound?
No sound coming through. You have to share it when you do the share, but that's fine.
You don't have to.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is in Mecca. This is in Mecca. This is a short compilation I've done, a video you find on the social medias. And you see when the rain happens, it concentrates. And it can be very, very dangerous. So what we see now is only a tiny proportion of what could have happened centuries ago, because the Saudis, they have done extensive works. They have built huge systems and canals and so on in order to secure the city. But even with these works, we still get some very impressive floods, such as the one you see here, dangerous floods. And even the haram, the sanctuary, is sometimes flooded. Here you see the haram. You see the you see the floods. Let me go a bit faster. Here the pilgrims are on their way to the haram. You see the tents, and this is the haram. And this is during the one of a storm. So it shows how violent the storms can be.
The problem there is that whenever the water came to Mecca, the water would be contaminated because it would flow into all the areas where people go to the toilet. I would imagine that's an issue.
And there's and for example, the Zamzam water is known to not be very sane, very good. There are high levels of chemicals and arsenic, I think, and it's not very safe. And it's because it's not water coming from an ancient deep underground aquifer, but the Zamzam aquifer is filled every rain seasons with rainfalls, and rainfalls carry all the rubbish and the chemicals and the stuff they came across before filling the well. Let me go back to the presentation, which is where is it? This one.
Paul and Kalam, you guys are very quiet. Any thoughts from your guys' side?
Sorry?
From my side, just before I lose connection, because I'm almost out of energy on my laptop, the Muslims might actually look at those floods and say, "Oh well, you see, there was plenty of water in Mecca, and the Zamzam well gets stopped up as well every 10 years." Obviously, that water, yes, will sweep everything away. It doesn't actually stay there. They didn't have dams or anything. But yeah, that picture that is on screen is just as realistic as the places we see in the Lord of the Rings.
There's another problem that even where they might have been able to produce topsoil, the moment you have a flood, it
Washes
erodes the
Mhm.
topsoil, gets rid of it. So, like even in the let's say if you grant them, okay, they managed to bring in all the material they needed to create soil that they could grow crops on. The moment a flood happens, that's washed away.
Yeah. And there are reports of travelers from the 19th century who went to Mecca, and they explained that the city was mostly built in the hills in order to get protection from the floods. And it's only recently with the Saudi development that the down part of the city has been developed. I wanted also to show you this map, this gray map. It's taken from 1946 British intelligence manual. So it's a map of Mecca, which documents the existing wells at the time. So it's contemporary evidence, and I think it's much more serious than the siramaps.com screenshot you have on the here on the left. And the thing with those wells is that I've put them in yellow. You see here in central Mecca, there are only 3 wells plus the Zamzam well. And I've added the Salja and Al-Badr well that are found all, in this screenshot. So in 1946, the water supply of Mecca had somewhat been solved. There was the Ain Zubair aqueduct who supplied water to Mecca. So there was not as much need for wells and basins and cisterns. But you see that it has remained very, very scarce. And it's an interesting document because we don't have much in terms of studies on the water supply in Mecca. Yeah, we talked about the floods. Here there is this. I've put up some pictures of the 1941 Mecca flood, and this picture is of a more recent one. Actually, this violent flood phenomenon, it happens one every 10 years, something like this. But once a century, there is a very, very major violent flood. And it's a great concern for the Saudis because the last major flood was in 1941. And so a flood will happen in the coming years. It's a matter of time. It's fate. And so the Saudis have asked Western agencies, Western construction companies, and so on they have to ask them to address the problem. And these companies made studies. I've quoted one in my book, In the Great Secret of Islam. And these studies are very, very alarming because they say that the next major flood will be much more violent than the former one, the 1941 one, because in the meantime, the city has been covered with concrete and roads and so on, and so there is no room, no bare soil that can absorb water like it did in 1941. So the next flood will be a very, very big one, and it could mean the destruction of the city. Even with the extensive work that the Saudis have been doing. So we'll see what will happen. It will be something to consider. Here I wanted to talk a bit about the water issue, exemplified by the Ain Zubaydah aqueduct. So Mel already talked about it. There is this story in the Islamic narrative that it was one of the wives of Khalif, I think it's Al-Rashid.
Yeah.
At the end of the 8th century, supposedly, according to this narrative, she was desperate to see that many pilgrims were dying of thirst in Mecca. And she took it upon herself and her own personal treasury to have several aqueducts built, tens of kilometers long aqueducts that brought fresh water to Mecca. And this system remained in place up until the midst of the 20th century, when it was replaced by more modern constructions. This is an interesting anecdote, because of course there was no such thing as hundreds or thousands of pilgrims dying of thirst in Mecca. But it shows us that the pilgrimage was not possible before this aqueduct system was constructed. It shows us that Mecca could not have existed without this water system supply. It shows us that Mecca was invented at least in the 9th century, or at the end of the 8th, beginning of the 9th century. So it's a sort of hard evidence that Mecca is a fabrication. We can also have other clues of this within the Islamic narrative, with the story of the Karaites. The Karaites were a Shia faction that was opposed to the pilgrimage in Mecca. They thought it to be an innovation, an heresy within Islam. And at the beginning of the 11th century, I think, or at the end of the 10th century, maybe beginning of the 11th century, the Karaites conquered Mecca, ransacked everything, destroyed the Kaaba, poisoned the wells. They stole the black stone. That is this meteoritic stone in the that is put in a corner, in one of the corners of the Kaaba. And because they thought that it was an innovation, it's also a clue that the Mecca, as the birthplace of Islam, as the pilgrimage center for that every Muslim has to do once in its life, it's a creation, it's a fabrication. Otherwise, they wouldn't have needed to conquer and destroy the city. So this water issue is very, very important, and it's a hard fact. Some of what I've told you is based on the Islamic narrative, but the water supply in Mecca, it's very concrete, it's very tangible, and everyone can understand that without water you cannot have a city, you cannot have a settlement, and you can invent every well every fantasy story in the narrative, it won't justify. It won't be enough to justify the existence of Mecca before Islam. So we have hard evidence that Mecca did not exist. You see, it's something to answer to all of these Muslims who say absence of evidence is not proof of absence. Here we don't have absence of evidence. We have hard evidence, and it's everyone can understand this. It's very relatable.
I'd like to catch your attention, if you don't mind, guys, to the narratives of the scholars of Islam concerning Abraham leaving his son Ishmael and his mother Hagar in Mecca. I don't believe in that at all. I don't believe Arabs are the descendants of Ishmael. I don't believe Abraham took Hagar there. None of this makes sense. But I think the writings tell you about internal evidence of what was exactly the condition of that land. You see it in the Al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, all of them. They say the same thing. That it was a hard place for people to live. There is no plants. There is no trees. There is no water. And the miracle of her finding the water, Hagar and Ishmael was a baby at that time, 2 years or younger, because she was still breastfeeding him, according to the scholars' interpretation, which is all make no sense because we know Ishmael was at least 17 years old when he was kicked out with his mother, and we know where they were lost in Beersheba. And all the story was from
Usama, it's better than camel pills. You agree?
I'm sorry?
It's better than camel piss.
Well, yeah, it is better than camel piss, that's true. But in the description of the scholars of Islam from Abraham days, that place was a place with no water, a place with no life. Even Abraham prayed. Go in the Quran and read it. Abraham prayed in Al-A'raf and in Quran and Surah Hud. You see that Abraham prayed to Allah, oh Allah, provides him with fruits. And he put it in the plural language, grammar in the Arabic, samarat. Well, until today, I don't see there but dates. So I don't know what kind of fruits if Allah only gave him one thing, which is date. So it's internal evidence that it was not really a wonderful place for people to live with water or plants or trees. Yeah.
You know that a date tree needs 180 liters per day.
Wow.
And they suck water from the earth. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, now if you've got, I mean, that's a fully grown tree, obviously, but let's say they claim to have these date plantation. Let's say, I don't know, 1,000 trees. You work it out, 180 liters per day per tree. That is a lot of water. Massive amounts. You're sucking it out of the earth. You're depleting the aquifers. Where does that leave you?
Yeah. There's another issue, which is in the traditions, they say that the water of the Zamzam well is inexhaustible. Well, if that's true, how come they dug other wells? Why did they build an aqueduct? You know? So even their own traditions are disproved by the practicalities of trying to survive in Mecca.
Yeah. And I remember seeing videos on your former channel, Mel, when you were the host of Sneakers Corner, presentation on the actual Zamzam well, which is 0.001% of actual Zamzam water, and all the rest comes from the Red Sea through the desalination plants in Jeddah.
Yeah.
You know, I actually designed, rather, I didn't build it. I designed a security system, a surveillance system at the inlet for the Jeddah water desalination plant. So they've got an inlet on the coast, and I designed a surveillance system to actually protect that from unauthorized access. So that was many years ago. I don't know if they ever installed it, but I mean, I designed it many years ago.
Okay.
Do you know what's a good parallel to all of this discussion is I don't know if you've been following, but the issue of water in Iran is a really pressing issue. And Iran basically over the last number of decades, moved towards growing as much food as possible for its own population. So 90% of its water was going into growing crops. And what resulted is the reservoirs are empty. And before the current revolt, the taps have run out of water. They allowed them a little bit of water, like maybe an hour or two each day. And they're talking about moving the population of Tehran to elsewhere in the country because they don't have enough water. So that just shows you the reality where you are in a desert region and you're trying to support population and there's not enough water. The reality is it's not possible, especially if you're trying to grow your food.
It's not possible. It's what I told you in my introduction. There are some cities that have climates like Mecca. I told you about Riyadh or Aswan in Egypt, but there is the same in the US, Phoenix in Arizona or Las Vegas. There are city built in the desert, but they benefit from the support of an external state that brings that has built dams, that has built huge canals in Phoenix or in Las Vegas, and they can pump into very deep fossil aquifers that do not exist in Mecca. And so, if we compare the situation of Mecca with the city, we see that there is something wrong with Mecca. It doesn't make sense in Mecca. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
There is another very important element to take into account. It's isolation of Mecca. Here on this map that I've done myself with by consulting many scholarly maps. I've put forth the traditional here. It was the traditional caravan road, but it was not. You see that I haven't put Mecca on the map. Taif would be something like here, but in the 7th century, thanks to Patricia Krohn's work, we know that there was no trade, no effective trade on this traditional road. Everything had been diverted to the sea route here, which crosses the Red Sea, and the boats are much cheaper to use than a camel caravan, much cheaper. And every port is on the African coast, not on the Arabian coast. So it's another argument against the existence of Mecca. This is what she proved in our book, a major book from 1985, I guess, if I remember well, Meccan Trade and the Rise of Islam. And she never retracted what she wrote in this book, that there was no possible trade that could sustain the existence of Mecca. She wrote something afterwards, Courage in the Roman Army, making sense of the Meccan leather trade, where because of all the critics, she felt compelled to study a bit more this abstraction, this possibility, this abstract possibility of a Meccan trade, and she put forth the hypothesis that the Meccans could have engaged in leather trade with the Romans, but this hypothesis is only a virtual one, because it wouldn't have been a trade that would have been profitable enough to sustain the city. And besides, there is nothing. She hasn't taken into account the water supply or the agriculture that is not possible on the site. So all in all, there was no trade in Mecca. It was not a trading post or a trading base. You cannot raise camels in Mecca. You cannot have a caravanserai there, a base for the trade. It's located outside of the traditional itinerary, outside of the Arabian plateau, where you will find Taif, Najran, or Yathrib, for example. And so in order to make your trade from Mecca, you will have to engage in a 3 days journey, climbing 1,300 meters up to the plateau in order to join to find the traditional itinerary, the ancient trade routes that would not have been used at the time, because all of the trade had been diverted to the sea route, the Red Sea route. So it's another very strong argument against the possibility against the existence of an ancient Mecca.
Yeah, I want to mention something that Kalam brought to our attention from his talk. Paul, I hope you don't mind. I muted you, Paul, because there's a lot of noise coming through from someone's mic. It sounds like someone stomping around a room.
Yeah, it's Paul. Paul.
So I would have muted you, Paul. I think it's someone coming through from your microphone, someone in your vicinity. We just mentioned, Kalam mentioned Al-Mahabisha. Well, okay, Kalam mentioned Yemen, right? He spoke about Ethiopia and Yemen. And I mentioned Al-Mahabisha, which is the place of the Ethiopians, right? Which we discussed recently. Now, if we go into Yemen, if you look at these people were they were at one point, the third or fourth most powerful empire, right? They controlled all of Arabia. So if you look here, Al-Mahabisha, you're very close. These people traded. They were trading with China, apparently. India, China, even the Roman and Greek, the Byzantine empires, right? So they were trading all over, north, south, east, west. If you go to Al-Mahabisha, look at this. You've got similar terrain, right, as Mecca. But once you zoom in, it is very
green.
Look at the terraces here, the farming, and look at the volume of people. Or look at the settlements here, right? Look at the settlements. This is very green. You can see this farming everywhere. But as we go in close, for example, here, there are terraces, and these people are farming all over the place, right? So they've got plenty of water. They've got plenty of terraces. They're growing plenty of things. And these people were seafaring. So they were fishing. They were on boats. They were traveling all over. And the Quran speaks of this. Look at these terraces.
Yeah.
Right. So this place, and they had dates. They match everything that's ascribed to Mecca. Fits very well in Yemen as well, in this particular region.
Not everything.
What?
Not everything. Not everything. There is more in the Quran. You will see. I will get to it.
But you have a place that fits much better than Petra does.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And it matches all of these things. And also Makoraba, which Muslims claim is the old Mecca. This is the original Makoraba. This is Makoraba has been mapped point blank onto this location. So this is the original Makoraba that Muslims refer to as Mecca. And this is everything, the trees, the entire, everything fits here. This is very, very green. This all fits.
There's an issue that we haven't brought up, which is you can talk about the rainfall, but evaporation is also a key issue. And the differential between rainfall per year and the evaporation per year. So, for example, a figure that I've looked up is in southern Arabia. evaporation per square kilometer can be anything from 5 millimeters to 15 millimeters per day. So you can imagine how even if you have a lot of rain, it's going to evaporate. So if you put water on a field to grow crops, and if it's losing so much through just evaporation, you're talking about even more water than we imagine.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Kalam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, definitely. I 2 points I wanted to make based upon everything that you guys been talking about. The first one is to do with, there's a beautiful quote within inside of Al Jahiz. In there, he has a certain response from Al Haykutan. And I don't know if you can put it up on the screen right now. I've got sharing my screen. It was like, the Arabs and this particular individual, I think he was of Ethiopian descent. It was like they're having a rap battle with one another, just jousting at one another. And one of the criticisms is that, let's just pull it up here, that basically that their country is basically not desirable, because if it was desirable, people from Himyar would have gone there to get themselves crowned. But alas, there is no winter or summer resort, and no springs which water gushes forth. It has no leisure fields, no seashores for fishing. It is only for trading, and traders are despised, weak people. Are you not a poppy, and your mother ate you? Okay, so just going on to other stuff, just jousting at the individuals, but just showing you that there's literally nothing there. There is nothing that is pleasable or pleasurable to be there. There's no fields, there's no seashores that you could do fishing. Like the most that they did or claim to have done is actually trading. So it's very interesting that the same criticisms that we're bringing now in the 21st century, already with inside of the 8th or 9th century, these criticisms were already there to show that it was an arid land that didn't have much as well. And then another thing, you spoke on the population size of Mecca, and I just wanted to bring up that there is an excellent article on that by Majid Robinson. If anybody actually wanted to check it out, I think. Yep, I know that's exactly where you're getting it from, and I was like, yeah, I like that. That's a wonderful book. A wonderful article. Let me see if I could just bring it up for everybody. Where are you? Over here. Majid Robinson, the population size of Muhammad's Mecca and the creation of the Quraysh. So it's even letting you know that even the Quraysh, as a supposed tribe or clan, whatever the case is actually 100% made up. Has it not switched over yet?
Sorry, it was me.
This is
when you shared,
study. Excuse me, Lloyd. This is the study I was referring to at the beginning. I spoke about a study that
let me get it back.
out of 500.
Could you just share it again, please? Well, could you just share it again, please?
Okay.
That was my fault.
Okay, no problem. It's saying it's sharing. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, there it is.
Yeah, there it goes. Let me go back onto it. Yeah.
Majid Robinson. What he did is really interesting. He looked at the Islamic narrative, and he pinpointed every name for the males, for the men, and I think his final count is something like 500 men,
Yes.
500 men population. So,
550.
like I said, something like 2,000 people population in Mecca, which is not possible.
I think he said in total, total is 552.
552. Okay.
Yeah, 550. Let me just double check my maths on this. 552. It says this gives us a final figure of 552 individuals living in Mecca at the time of Muhammad. And this is on page number 17. It says 131 men in the generation, total figure of 421 tribespeople, Of these, 184 would have been children under the age of 15, and 17 would have been elderly men and women over the age of 60, a tribe of 421 individuals in line with Bedouin tribal population studied in the 1960s and 1970s. These range between 261 and 785. So yeah, this great city that they discuss, couldn't have possibly existed to the magnitude, that they have in the later Hadith literatures.
And why is it for Yemen, for argument's sake, we've got, if you take Marib, which is possibly the world's oldest dam, or at least in that region, it's 800 BC. You've got evidence of South Arabian civilization, of temples, you have language, you have writing, you have artifacts going back to 1000 BC. And then Mecca, supposedly the world's oldest city, but you've got literally zero from Mecca, which is much, much later, or much earlier.
Very good point. Yeah. And it's amazing. We read in the Bible about Yemen, we read about the Queen of Sheba, but we never read anything about Mecca. I mean, that is in Solomon days. Guys, you're talking about 1,000 years before Christ. We know about the Queen of Sheba. We know about Yemen. And you go up to even New Testament time. Nothing is written about Mecca.
Yeah. I mean, we have copious evidence archaeologically of South Arabian civilization, but literally nothing for this supposed grand city of Mecca.
And you know what was amazing is all the years of my life in Egypt, I studied 18 years, finished high school, 4 more years in college, and they always produce Mecca to us as not just a great city. It is the city for the traveler. If you're coming from Yemen and you go into the Levant, if you go to Syria or you go to Lebanon, you stop in Mecca to get water, to get food, to rest, to relax, and enjoy yourself so you can continue the rest of the trip. And now I'm telling you, from what we have seen so far, if you have any water before you get to Mecca, you're out of water, and good luck to get a gallon of water when you leave Mecca to continue your trip. I mean, it'd be full to swing by Mecca. It's like me driving my car, and they said, go 50 miles that way to the east, from the trout, which we know there, so you can get some gas. And I know there's no gas there, so I'm gonna go 50 miles down, 50 miles out. That's 100 miles of nothing for nothing, because I'm not gonna get gas. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. This is part of what I call the argument of silence.
Yeah.
There is nothing to be found here.
Yeah.
Nothing to be found.
Yeah.
We have hard evidence that it could not have been in Mecca with the water supply and the climate. But there is also this argument of silence, that there is no trace, absolutely no trace of Mecca in ancient history. No ancient sources, like Patricia Krohn wrote it in Mecca Trade and the Rise of Islam.
Say something. Paul, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. First of all, my apologies that I seem to have been putting forward a bit of an argument of silence for the last 90 minutes. I've been having some technical difficulties with my I don't know whether it's the headphones or the microphone, but I've been hearing a lot of interference, and I commented on it earlier. I don't think anybody else can hear it, so it looks like it's coming in my end, but there's nothing
it's
here.
Solved now, it seems it's solved.
Nothing here that's wireless, so I've no idea where it's come from. But one or two observations I've just made that I've been thinking about. On that article by Masjid Robinson, I think just put it into context, he was basing that on accounts of the Quraysh that were recorded in the 9th century. There's a genealogy that was created in the 9th century, and he then extrapolates from this genealogy. He says, well, if this is true, then there would be far more later than there actually are, and he goes back and says maybe there'll be about 500. It says it's not. It says it's not, certainly not an ancient people, because it couldn't have possibly have been. As I say, so it's an argument built on sand. Anyways, I suppose my point. It's not saying that there were 500 people there. He was simply saying that if this genealogy is to be believed, there could not have been more than 500 people there sometime earlier. So it's rather it's the Islamic narrative shooting itself in the foot once again. Just want to say thank you very much, Odin, for such a wonderful presentation. In truth, I've had absolutely nothing to add to it. It's been absolutely masterly and completely. It's rather cruel. You're kind of continuing to dismember and take apart the narrative long after somebody like me has dismissed it. On the trade route point, I think before we leave that, Patricia Crone said that it would take several weeks, wouldn't it, to do the whole route, to go from, say, Yemen all the way up to anywhere where you could possibly sell anything to. A trade route requires a producer and a market. That's or at least some place where you get the goods, and then some place where you sell the goods. Either create the goods or buy the goods, and then somewhere where you sell them, take them to market. And for Mecca to be on a route at all means a journey from Yemen basically up to I guess the Byzantine Empire or somewhere. And she said the only way that you could drive a camel that sort of distance for weeks after weeks, about 3 weeks or whatever it was it takes to do the whole thing, would be if the thing was extremely valuable. So she talks about maybe jewels or incense or something of that sort. But there's no record of that in the narrative. The narrative talks about them trading in leather and raisins, and it's utterly ridiculous. I think common sense says that the Roman Empire would be prepared to pay somebody to carry common goods like that for 3 or 4 weeks, and for it to be profitable for them. It simply couldn't be. The second point, of course, is to be a trading hub. It's not enough to be on a trade route. You need to be on 2 or more trade routes. If it's one route, and then it's just a service station. It's a place where people stop. That's not the same as a trading route. You don't get huge markets and trading families and people buying and selling from each other if it's just somewhere where a caravan comes through once every few months and pauses for water. That's not going to create a mercantile community.
That's a perfect point. I mean, the South Arabians, these Yemenis, had a number of cities, independent city-states almost, like Hatra, which was discovered in the late 1800s, which had a temple, a central temple, and they had all of the gods of all of the people who came and traded there in the temple, just like the Kaaba. So you had your 360 gods. They were open to anybody, and these city-states were basically places of peace. Everyone could trade there. Everyone, and I mean, so they had them all across Canaan, all across Mesopotamia, the whole Mesopotamian belt. They had, I think, a dozen of these cities. So the Yemenis do fit the bill here for traders. And if I can show one more thing, the Persian name Cyrus, what we call Cyrus, the Persians called Kurosh or Kurosh.
Quraysh,
right?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, exactly. So the Anglophones, we call him Cyrus. He's known in Persian history as Kuroshi.
It's in the Bible. It's in
right?
the Bible.
The Greek lacks the S sound, so it became Kuros, which became Cyrus. But if you go Kuresh, Kurosh, Kuroshi, Kureshi, this is very, very similar here. And there's certain other theological overlaps, but this is from Cyrus from the Bible being repurposed here, and they become the Kureshi because he was the Kuroshi, the Kureshi.
Yeah.
There's something very unusual, of course, about the Quraysh, because every other Arab tribe, pretty much, that's mentioned in the story or in other sources, is always named after a single progenitor. It's always the Banu this or the Banu that, and it always seems to be named after some illustrious forebear or progenitor of the tribe, or we are the children of this great person. And the Quraysh is quite striking for not having Banu in front of it. And yet, if one asks, what does the word Quraysh mean? I mean, I make in my book a little paragraph, and it's got a list of explanations that have been offered. One of them is shark. I mean, I don't quite see how somebody based in Mecca would call their tribe the Sharks. It sounds quite West Side Story. Another one is that it's called it means distribute, because there was some wealthy man who used to distribute goods to his people, and this sort of thing. And the learning point from all this is that there is no explanation. It might be derived from Cyrus. I don't rule that out. But what we can say for certain is that the Muslim narrative doesn't know what the word Quraysh means. It's got the word. The word appears in the Quran, but by the time they get to writing the narrative, nobody has any clue who these people are, where they come from.
Yeah, Cyrus was like the guardian or the messiah or the keeper of the whatever. There's some religious connotation, and they obviously just borrowed that from the Sasanians or whatever, imported that and applied it to themselves, and then said, well, he's from that tribe. So, because it doesn't make sense. Mel, you were going to say something?
Yeah, you could actually find the word in Ugaritic, and it goes back to the 14th century BC, and its meaning in Ugaritic is a temple. So considering we're talking about the Jerusalem Thesis, it's another word for the temple, as in the Temple Mount.
Okay. So yeah, there's something, and Kalam has something. Yeah.
So yeah, I always say, let's try to look at South Arabia being, how can I say, the last inscriptions that we do have before the era of Islam is definitely from South Arabia, the Sabaic. And I'm like, okay, let's just quickly look there to see, is that word even found there? And I found it, and it's there on the screen. This is the Sabaic dictionary. There is a, the consonantal, the roots there, QRS, Quraysh, however you want to pronounce it. And in the South Arabic, it does actually mean ram or sheep. And that got me looking at the actual chapter of the Quran. I believe it is chapter 106. And if we now replace, that meaning of Quraysh as meaning a sheep, and we start rereading it again, it seemed to me to be quite a, it's like a psalm. It's reading off the Psalms.
The Lamb of God, in that sense, the Lamb of God.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Will be, I'll have to bring it up. I would love to do a show on this to show the parallels of Psalms 23 line by line, and how it has a parallel.
So I want to prep a few pages for the next time we do this talk. I mean, because look, we're exploring this whole topic, right? And I mean, input is welcome. I mean, Paul said some very interesting things. Mal said interesting things. Usama. So everyone, I mean, by all means, prepare a few slides and let's talk about that. Because I think we're all putting pieces of the puzzle on the table here, except for me.
I would like to develop a bit one of Paul's points about Majid Robinson's paper. So based on the narrative from the 9th century about the Quraysh people, he extrapolated a population of around 500 people in Mecca in the 7th century, according to this narrative. The thing is that in the 9th centuries, stories about the Quraysh had already been invented, false genealogies had been invented, and so on. So one could assume that there would have been many false reports of Quraysh in the 9th century narrative. So the 131 men names he found is a much more. I'm sure there are some there are some names that have been created, fabricated,
Right.
And so his evaluation is 500 people evaluation for the size of Mecca in the 7th century. It's an over evaluation already.
Suspect.
And it goes also with another argument against the existence of Mecca. You see, Mecca was supposed, according to the Islamic narrative, was supposed to be a hub, like you said it, Paul, a city where thousands of people met with flourishing trade activity, religious activities, and so on. And so one would assume that with the development of Islam, Mecca should have been the capital of Islam. Mecca should have developed, should have been known everywhere in the Levant, everywhere where the Arabs were.
Not just that, brother. Not just that.
About Mecca.
Yeah.
But the
Mecca
thing with
should be
Mecca
known.
is that we have even less proof about Mecca after the beginning of Islam than before. This doesn't make sense at all.
Sure, but not just this. Mecca should be mentioned at least in the Quran more than one time Mecca, another time Becca. I mean, if I look at the word Jerusalem or the word Egypt, I mean, for heaven's sake, Egypt is mentioned in the Bible over 600 times, which have nothing to do with the Holy Land. It just as a history, piece of land where some things happened with the people of God and so on and so on. But why Mecca is mentioned in the Quran? One time Mecca and another time Becca, and that's it. No, Muhammad never even. I mean, it makes no sense how the Quran is written to describe the city of Muhammad, where we know nothing about it.
Yeah.
It makes
You
no
know, this
sense.
is Hatra. So this was a small Arab kingdom. This is a South Arabian kingdom in Mesopotamia. If I recall, there was something like a dozen of these cities, these fortified trading cities that spread west and then south into all the way through Arabia into Yemen. And notice, officially called the Beit Elaha, the house of God in Aramaic inscriptions. So that lines up with what you said, Mel. It's the temple, it's the house. And Al-Hadr, that's Hatra. This was it flourished in the 2nd century, destroyed in the 3rd century, discovered in the 19th. And there's something like a dozen of these that are known of. They were on coins. This was very well known as trading cities. And they, as I said, the temple had all of the fusion of all of the gods. So you had all, quote unquote, 365 gods. Capital of the possibly first Arab kingdom in the chain of Arab cities from Hatra in the northeast via Palmyra, Baalbek, and Petra. They had temples to the Assyrian Babylonian gods, the Akkadian gods, Hermes, Atrahasis, the Syro-Armenian gods, Alat, the wife of Allah, Shamiya, Arabian, Shamash, the Mesopotamian sun god. So you're looking at other deities were Baal Shemain, the female deity known as, and so on and so on. I mean, this is blah, blah, blah. But this lines up with not Mecca, but they built Mecca on this idea.
Yeah.
It's very striking. You've got that beautiful temple. I mean, I don't know if it's been reconstructed a little bit, but yes. But you find all sorts of places, quite ordinary, out of the way, unimportant places, and then the archaeologists get involved and start doing a little bit of careful digging and excavation. They find the outlines of buildings. They find animal bones, they find coins, the broken vases, and that sort of thing, because you can't really have a settlement without leaving some sort of trace. And Mecca is just striking. They've got nothing, not one single, a trading center in which nobody ever dropped a coin.
Amazing.
Not a single pot was broken and thrown away. Mel?
Correct.
If you look at the 7th century and 8th century, where did they have their capitals? You have Damascus. For a brief time, there was Haran, and then it was essentially Baghdad, or what became Baghdad. So you have Syria, you have southern Turkey, of what we would call southern Turkey in Haran, and you have Iraq. I think the fact that those were the places that they chose to have their capitals tells you everything you need to know about the origins of Islam. That's where you need to look. It's not in the outskirts. I view Mecca as a massive misdirection, because if you look in the right place, you'll discover how Islam really began. but as long as they keep you distracted. And that's what I discovered when I looked into the seal of the prophets. Why were later Islamic writers trying to misdirect people to talking about Mani instead of looking at Tertullian? Like universally, they were trying to say, don't look at this guy, Tertullian, look at Mani, anyone but Tertullian, because that gives the game away. Because they don't want it to seem like the Quran is referencing Christian writers. They want people to imagine that there's this pagan environment that Islam began in. And that's the narrative that they're happy with people talking about. This is one of the reasons why well-meaning Christians who regurgitate the Islamic narrative to do with the pagan environment, the Muslims are happy with that because it reinforces what they want people to believe. That's why they're afraid of the historical critique.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, guys, I'd like to sort of start to slowly wind down. So, if we can sort of add our final comments, then we wind down for the 2-hour mark. Is that okay?
Lloyd,
Yep.
If you want me to wrap it up, I just have one more slide.
Sure. Yeah, and then we can
add everything I've talked about, almost everything. It has been about hard evidence. We started to look into the void evidence, the argument of silence, and it's very easy. We talked about the silence of ancient sources. There is no mention of Mecca whatsoever, and it's very deranging. Even more so after after Islam had emerged. There is the absence of ancient remains at Mecca, and we don't have evidence of this absence because we cannot find evidence of an absence. But I found an interview of an Saudi architect who worked on the huge work on the Haram in the year 2000 when they built the towers and the big hotels and so on. And this guy was was interviewed in Al Jazeera in English. There is this article which can be found on the web, "The Man Who Dreams of Old Mecca," and he said that there is nothing that can be dated to before Islam in Mecca. So no coins, no remains, no tombs, no artifacts, no shards of pottery, nothing. Of course, he's a devout Muslim, so he doesn't emphasize on this, and he doesn't jump to the right conclusion. But still, he testifies an absence of ancient remains at Mecca. There is also no trace of the supposedly Meccan pilgrimage, of Meccan polytheism. Absolutely no trace of Meccan polytheism in the 7th century. There is this article by the French archaeologist Christian Julien Robin about pre-Islamic Arabia in the huge book, the Coran des Historiens, the Historian's Quran, where he wrote that there is absolutely no trace of active Meccan polytheism in Arabia apart from Mecca. And the only evidence that we have in Mecca that there would have been such a religious activity in Mecca is the Islamic narrative, because there is no trace outside of it. There is this thing about the trade that had shifted from land caravans to maritime routes. We already talked about it. And there is also this other interesting thing, I think I already presented it on your channel, Lloyd, is that we have no evidence of Quraysh having settled in the Mecca region.
Right.
Whereas we have evidence of them having settled in Syria.
So they simply took the name and said, yeah, we're those guys.
Yeah, and it's much more than we have evidence for a Quraysh caravanserai near Latakia, Al-Ladikia in Syria. We have Ras Quraysh, which is Quraysh Cape, sort of, that can be found in Syria. Let me show you the map. It's in my book. It's here. here it's this is in the PDF version of my book. This is a map of ancient Syria that has been done by Edouard Marie Galez. And here there is the Khan el-Qurashiyeh, the remains, the archaeological remains of this Khan el-Qurashiyeh were still there in the 1920s.
Well, there's the Bani Israel as well, and the Yahudis. So
you see lots of evidence that there was a sort of geographical transfer from Syria to Mecca. It doesn't mean that everything happened in Syria. But for example, look at this. You know Abu Qubais? Abu Qubais, it's a small town near Homs. And nowadays it's also a district in Mecca.
Yeah, and there's even Wadi Nasara.
Yeah, because it has to do with the Nazarenes.
Yep.
Here we have the Nar Quraysh, the river of the Quraysh that was there.
Yeah.
And you know, names of places.
Beit Makkah below Homs.
Yeah, Abil Beit Makkah. We also have an Abu Kaaba. Where is it exactly? Let me find it. Abu Kabe here.
Right.
And Abu Qubais and Abil Beit Makkah. Abil Beit Makkah, it means the river of the house of Makkah, the water course. So we have evidence that some of the Quraysh were settled there. And if you look at it from an eagle eye, like we are doing now, you see Al-Ladikia, Beirut, and here it's modern-day Turkey. It's an ideal place for trade. Let me go back to my map here.
This is Kalam screen. We just kick that. Yeah.
Okay, and let me share my screen, reshare it. All right, here. If you look at the map I showed you, where is it? Here. You see Al-Ladikia and this region of Syria, it's here. You see, it's at the end of the Silk Road. You make the connection with the traditional trade routes, the Arab trade routes here. You see, it's just above Damascus, actually. So it's an ideal location for trade.
And it ran through the Sasanian Empire, which makes sense if you're talking about the Qurayshis or the Qurashis.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It would make sense with the descriptions that we found in the Islamic narrative, telling us, like Paul told us, that the Quraysh were trading leather, perfume, raisins. I haven't heard about raisins, but I read about dairies.
Incense, myrrh was a major export from Yemen region.
This trade could have very well. It would have been possible here in this region. It's also.
So, Brother Odi, in your personal opinion, Islam started up north and went down, not the opposite, not from where we know.
In my opinion, Islam starts in Damascus or in Jerusalem. And before we have various movements, some in Syria, but it's also all along the trading routes.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned in the Sira,
yeah. So
in Syria and all these places feature in the Sira, so they got to explain, oh yeah, he was in Syria then, so that explains how they got all the stuff, right?
But you know, Usama, this idea that Islam had a beginning, it's very Islamic. It comes from Islam. It's the same as the idea of Mecca being a barren place, like Mel told us. It's all about it's an apologetics invention. Islam at the beginning, so it had a unique place of origin with a unique prophet. These are all inventions. Actually, Islam emerged from a cauldron with many different movements, messianic, apocalyptic, Christian, Jewish, and it was all mixed together in Middle Eastern cauldron, and Islam started to emerge as a structured movement with Abdul Malik in Damascus.
I mean, like
and thereafter
Yathrib.
in Baghdad.
On your map
But
there, you've
before,
got
it's gonna
Yathrib,
be-
right? Sorry, on your map, you've got Yathrib right in the middle of the map. There's a Yathrib in Iraq, just outside of Baghdad, just north of Baghdad.
No, it's Ctesiphon.
Yathrib. See Yathrib?
Al-Hira.
Which is the
Yathrib.
original name of the city
No,
of
it's in
Medina.
Arabia here.
Go up.
No,
Yathrib.
hold on, just above, just where it says other, the word other, there's Yathrib. Notice
Yeah.
just by the word other, next to the O, there's the word Yathrib.
Here.
No, move up. There you go.
Oh, yeah,
Yathrib.
that's it.
I'm sorry, I have a double
That
pointer.
is the original name for Medina.
Yeah. Now
Yes,
Yathrib
Yathrib is,
is just
modern day
just
Medina.
outside of Baghdad as well. Yathrib is in
No,
Baghdad. as well.
Baghdad would be here.
Ctesiphon,
Near
exactly.
Ctesiphon.
And just north of Baghdad, there's another city called Yathrib as well.
Okay. I'm sorry.
There's
I get your point.
Yeah. So guys, we should start winding down now. We just passed the 2-hour mark, but
It's
Okay.
life, brother. It is
Actually,
life.
pick it up again next week.
Actually, it's a perfect moment to end here, because what I have afterwards, it will be much more centered on the Jerusalem thesis. It's a study of the Quranic text, and what does it say actually? What does it say literally? And we will see all of this: the farmers, the fishermen, the Dead Sea, God's temple, the standing place of Abraham, the prayer direction, the Hajj Umrah, and so on.
Nice. Okay. So guys, final thoughts from everyone, and we'll pick it up again next time. But this has been great. Today's been really interesting. The comments have been fantastic. So yeah, Usama, I'll start with you. We'll move across to the right.
It's very simple. I love what I hear, and what I hear, I'd love to dig deeper and deeper. I'm glad to have this wonderful panel with us today, because we can learn from each other. Thoughts come to our mind, and we can collectively put them together, come up with a good report. I hope and I pray that we'll have a wonderful time next week as we continue our digging. And you guys, you are challenging my brain cell that I have to dig deeper of what I'm hearing from you to make sure that I'm not being deceived by, especially you.
It's
You know
evolution.
why.
It's just catching up with your brain right now, Usama. We're bringing you into the 21st century.
Odie, thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it, man. You did a good job.
Kalam. Yeah, you're welcome. Kalam, from you?
Yes, I've had a brilliant time. So much learning. Like, everybody just has different pieces of the puzzle. That's just making it a bit more interesting for me to go back and do research. We've got, for example, we brought up Ugaritic, Syriac, what else? Quraysh Iranian, Persian. Then I'm talking about Sabay. It's like there's so much. We're all coming from different backgrounds, different research points, and we're just all bringing it together. And I can't wait for the future shows that we're just going to make it a little bit more precise, a little bit more clarified, and we're all going to come to, like, literally, we're all heading towards the same direction. We all know this stuff is make-believe, invented myths roughly in the 9th century, but what was the truth? What was the reality on the ground during that time period? How did it actually start? So yeah, I'm looking forward to the future.
Cool, man. Thanks, Mel.
It's been brilliant. I think I may be wrong, but I think I was the one that originally brought up this hydrological argument something like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much has been added to it since then. I think it's a really simple argument. I think anyone can understand it. You don't need to have a degree in Arabic to understand the argument. And I think it can reach a lot of ordinary Muslims who can see, if you explain to them how much water is needed for a civilization and the fact that there's not enough water there, it should be a good argument for anyone to use. So I think it's great. There's lots of other things I think that we can bring to this maybe at a later time. But I'm looking forward to the next live stream.
You know, Usama speaks Arabic, and look what it's done to him.
Look at my head. Hey, by the way, there was a question before we go to the next brother. There was a question given to me a little bit earlier about my editing Quran. It will take at least another year. So if you are waiting for the edited Quran, I made a mistake when I published my first one in 4 years. This one will take at least another year. Just keep me in your
So,
prayer for.
so Usama, we'll see you in 12 months, okay?
Just read. Hey, read what you got right now is good enough. Trust me.
Okay, fine. Yeah, Paul, your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Odin. It's a wonderful presentation, and I certainly recall Mel starting this furrow in the it must be a few years ago now, two maybe 3 years ago. You were talking about the Zamzam well, you were talking about the lack of water, and Odin has just created this magnificent argument on the strength of that. Takeaway, I particularly love the photograph, the reconstruction you found, Odin, of a settlement in the desert with hundreds of houses and not a blade of grass, not a tree. And the question is, you could show that to a child and say, "What's wrong with this picture?" And they would say, "How do these people live?" there's no way you get the food. You couldn't have something like that. You show it to you so well. Thank you very much for that. It's excellent.
True, and you saw in Yemen.
And my other thought is like silence. It is you could get quite poetic about it. You know, how long, how deep can you gaze into the silence and scrutinize the silence and reflect upon what the silence tells you? And the answer is a lot. You have found so much in this. Just the absence of evidence is becoming so telling. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, no, Paul, some really great contributions. Everyone, I think, what Kalam said, we are converging. The evidence is we're converging and we're adding pieces. I mean, we saw in Yemen the density of the population compared to the map from Odon, and then how green it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see there are gaps everywhere. So yeah, there's so much more we can do. I mean, the stuff I showed in the beginning, the statistics, I mean, all of that, everything added together, nothing makes sense. So yeah, so this has been fantastic, Odon. So guys, yeah, next week we'll be back again. I think this is great, and appreciate all the feedback and the input. I mean, this is really a meeting of minds, really, really helpful. Odon, final word to you.
It would be a follow-up on Paul's comment about this argument of silence. There is no silence anymore. We have hard facts. The thing with the water supply, for example, it's hard evidence. We have evidence. So this so-called absence of evidence that can mean anything, it doesn't stand anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, so guys, thank you. Then we'll pick this up again next week. It's been a real pleasure. And so really looking forward to it. And I mean, from this, I think there's many presentations we can do. Yes?
Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow, brother. We have our headache, your headache. I'm sorry for it.
Yeah, I'm going to start taking pills tonight already, pain pills, and You'll
be okay. You'll be okay. Good night, everybody. God bless you all.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night. God bless.
Bye.
Thank you.